Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. What does it take to become a gold medalist at the Olympics? How about becoming a gold medalist at your third Olympics after coming home without a medal the first two tries? And what does it require to create a team that is in sync, ready for just about any in-game situation? These questions and more are answered by my guest, Olympic men's volleyball gold medalist Ryan Millar. As you'll hear, Ryan is disciplined, and the practices he espouses go far beyond sport. We can all learn from what his path has taught him. So listen in as Ryan shares the gold medal mindset. Ryan Millar, a hearty welcome to Super Psyched.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Adam. I'm excited to be here and talk about things that are fun for me to talk about. So
for sure. Let's just start with talking about boring things, because I actually see getting into the Olympics the sum product of practicing deliberately and improving on boring things. You have to do the same thing over and over to really master it. They say that repetition is the mother of mastery. Can you describe some of the process of the boring things that you had to do in order to get into the Olympics?
Yeah, that's a good first question. The thing that immediately comes to my mind is when they hear that I've been to 3 Olympic Games, almost went to 4. So I was competing with Team USA for almost 15 years and winning a gold medal. They think, oh, how fantastic. And it's so wonderful. And there must have been all these great things that happened. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, I wish I could have done that. I played high school baseball or something you always hear. And I go, well, here's what a lot of people don't realize, to your point, is the way you get to that is you wake up every morning, you try to eat some type of breakfast, you go into practice, you go kill yourself for 6 to 8 hours, try to manage your recovery, you go home, try to eat some more, get some sleep, you wake up the next morning and you do it again. And you do that for 15 years. And so when people hear that approach, they're like, oh, that doesn't sound quite as wonderful. And I'm like, yeah, that's why it takes a little bit of extra than most people have, because not everyone's an Olympian and not everyone's a gold medalist. And so there is something special around being able to kind of work mentally and physically through the monotony of what it all looks like so that you can eventually get to a desired outcome or an end result. You're going to get somewhere, whether it's you're competing in the Olympics or maybe you're not good enough or whatever, but that's kind of how it is. Every day you've got to wake up and kind of do it over again and be okay with it and enjoy it. It just so happened that I just loved the sport of volleyball. And there was a very few days when I remember walking into practice and not being excited about trying to compete. And it was just part of my DNA.
It's part of your DNA, and yet there's meaning here. There's an old story of Arthur Rubinstein, the great pianist, playing beautifully and a woman walking over to him and saying, hey, I'd give anything to play like you. And he said, I did. And you did give everything to play this way. We're talking about 15 years, 5,400 and change. That's a lot of days, 5,400 days. Waking up, saying, you know what, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. And I think that's one of the big difference makers. And I'm wondering, what was the meaning? When you woke up, what fueled you on the days that you didn't want to go to practice?
There was an almost constant, insatiable desire to continually try to be the best that I could be. And the thing that's crazy about competing in a professional level athletic is there are also lots of other people that are just as hungry and just as good, or maybe even better than you, that would love to see you show up to those days and have you say, I'm not really interested in putting forth a really great effort today. And they're like, oh, if you won't, then I will. And I would love to take your spot as well. Even though you're all competing in the same team and you're kind of competing for the same goal, there is this general constant level of competition where I know if I don't show up and perform, the next guy who, by the way, might be taller, stronger, faster, and more hungry than I am in that moment that would more than happily take my spot. And so having that in the back of your mind really gave you that little extra push to say, okay, hey, if I'm choosing to be in this arena right now, if I'm choosing to be on this court, then I'm going to choose to be here, put forth what I can, because eventually I'm not going to be here, right? Eventually I'm going to be walking out of the gym and relaxing and being with my family and my friends and eating good food or whatever I'm going to be doing to try to reset my brain. I also have that same kind of mentality when I step on long airplane flights. So those of us that know, if you step onto a flight that you know is going to be like 12 hours long, and you're on the airplane and you're thinking, man, I've been on this plane forever. And you look and you still have 8 hours left.
Totally.
It can kind of mess with you a little bit mentally.
For sure.
And so I've got this mindset of, look, eventually I'm going to be walking off the plane. So if I'm going to be here, let me just kind of work through this. And eventually I'm going to be walking off the plane. I'm going to be smelling fresh air. That kind of went through my mind a lot when I would go into practices that I just wasn't feeling it. Just the fact and the recognition that eventually it was going to be something different really helped me.
Dude, I remember the first time I did a century on my bike, and I'm 60 miles into it. I'm like, wow, I've really biked far.
Yeah.
And I still got 40 more to go. And so I'm just thinking about the, that is such a part of getting there, is just staying in. One of my favorite montages of all time, and I think everybody can kind of sort of agree, is I think it was Rocky 2, where you see him wake up in the morning, crack an egg, drink it, and go out for his morning workout. What was your routine like on those 5,400 days? Did you wake up in the morning like, crap, another hard thing ahead of me? Did you put on music? Did you eat something? Like, what was your routine?
Mostly it was just kind of wake up. I'm a little bit structured, so I like to kind of eat the same thing every morning. So I would literally have yogurt and granola. That was my thing. And I'd mix it, and that was my breakfast. I like that a lot. Then you got to go to practice, right? I like to get to practice a little bit early for two reasons. One was to prepare my body physically for the rigors of what I was about to endure. So you have the normal, you get your ankles taped, and maybe you even put on some of the hot pads on the areas of your body where you're not feeling super hot, like your shoulder, your knees, or your back, just to make sure that you're feeling a little bit warm. Then I would get on the bike and make sure I was warm before I went out onto the court. And that was pretty much my routine for those years, and ensuring that I was ready to go when the whistle was blown. So,
dude, that is awesome. And was there a genre of music or a particular walk-on song that you used? How did music play a role in all of this?
For me, it was topical music. I liked the normal stuff, but music wasn't a massive part of what I was doing. For me, it was more listening to either audiobooks or podcasts or those types of things. That just activated my brain in a different way than trying to connect to something musically. But that was just me. There were other guys on our team that did it much different. So
that's so interesting, because I watch the swimmers. They often are wearing earbuds or headphones before they go. And I can only imagine they're getting into the zone. To your earlier answer, there's nothing quite like knowing that somebody else wants to eat your lunch. And that sounds like that was real fuel for you.
Absolutely, it was. But I needed it. You know what I mean? I really did. I needed it because only 12 guys for indoor volleyball, only 12 guys get to go to the Olympics. Actually, they just changed it this year. This is the first time that you can actually bring 13 guys or girls for volleyball. So you have one alternate that I can actually sub in case of injury. But when I was playing, you only could bring 12 guys. In our gym, we'd have 40, sometimes 50 guys. A lot of those guys are younger, kind of hungrier guys. And you're going to have to figure out how to differentiate yourself on a daily basis around, well, what is it about you that's going to stand out? How are you bringing value to the team? What level of performance are you performing at? All of that were things that were kind of going on in the back of my mind. And of course, we used data and analytics, and we were tracking everything from our hitting percentage to our serving percentage, point scoring, all of that. And so that was helpful as well, because I could identify gaps and where I needed to be focusing more attention on my development. And so that was helpful.
That's incredible fuel. And the idea, the image of 50 guys who are probably really good. They're not 50 schmucks. It was 50 amazing players. And you had to differentiate yourself and be better than at least 38 of them. That is really, really hard. And there was a lot of pain. You were describing like putting things on your body, taping yourself up, putting hot things on, playing through pain. Let's talk about that for a second. How do you do it?
That's a really important aspect of the professional athlete life, is literally just pain management, because there were a few days when I would go to practice and I didn't have anything that was hurting me in some way. It's just the way you deal with going through being an athlete. Is pain management is just what you do. It's as much as managing your performance as it is pain management. You know, the old adage of the best ability is availability. It's so true, because what we were talking about before, if I'm injured, that means I'm not playing. And if I'm not playing, then someone else is filling that spot. And so being able to manage the aches and pains, the injuries, different things, obviously in a sport like volleyball, you hear a lot of the same types of injuries that guys deal with: shoulder problems, back problems, knee problems, sprained ankles, broken fingers. Both of my pinkies are broken. That's just from trying to block and the ball hitting your fingers.
Wait, hold up. Ryan, are you saying sometimes you'd be out there hitting balls with a broken pinky or two?
When you break your finger, you're out for a little bit. But the magic of tape helps a lot, because you're typically back pretty quickly after breaking. I remember one time I actually dislocated my ring finger mid-rally. So we were still playing and my finger was just popped out of socket. And so they just popped it back in at a timeout. And then you go right back and play. So
sometimes I work with professional athletes, and one of them decided to show me all of his injuries that he accumulated before and during the NFL. You just don't know if you're a spectator. You just don't know about these things. And you see Ryan Millar walking with 11,000 athletes around the track, if it's not Paris, on a boat,
right,
for the opening ceremonies, behind the flag, stoked. And yet you have something in common with all of those people. All of those people who are walking around the track behind the flag of their country have done something that you know so well. And I'm wondering, like, you know how Snoop says gangsta knows gangsta? You meet somebody, anybody there, and you know you've got a ton in common. Doesn't matter the sport.
Right.
They know what it looked like to wake up when they didn't feel like it, go to practice, perhaps go to practice early, kind of like LeBron, always early and always stays late. A big differentiator. That's kind of what you did.
Right.
Is what I'm hearing. But when you saw fellow athletes from all over the world, did you feel like they were in the fraternity/sorority of your world?
Yeah, you really do, because it's one of the really cool things about going to the Olympic Games is being in the village and just being around all the athletes. There is this kind of general blanket mutual respect. You might not be the best at what I do, but I know you're one of the best at what you do. And so there is this kind of respect amongst the athletes. I might be one of the better volleyball players in the world, and I know you're probably one of the better badminton players in the world, or ping pong or kayaking. And so there ends up being this general respect amongst the athletes. Some are better than others. Some have bigger auras. When I was there, LeBron and Kobe went to the Olympics in Beijing when we won gold as well. And so some of these athletes have bigger auras. Federer was there, and Nadal as well, because they've done so much within their respective sports.
Sure.
And those respective sports might be sports that are generally more well-known than other sports, right? And so the Olympics is such a cool opportunity to meet different athletes that are doing all these different disciplines, and recognizing that they're the best in the world at them is something that's obviously special. So
I love that so much. The idea of seeing kind of your tribe, in a manner of speaking. All of these people sacrificed. All of these people probably went through those dark nights of the soul where they're like, oh my gosh, do I have it?
Right.
And can you describe, was there ever a moment where you were like, I'm questioning myself. Am I going to be able to make it? Am I going to be able to be in the top 12? Did you ever have one of those dark nights of the soul?
When I joined USA Volleyball, I was fresh out of college. So I used this term of blissful ignorance, which was perfect for me at that time, because I'm this 21-year-old kid who really doesn't know anything about international volleyball or professionalism. I'm just coming out of college, and I just like volleyball. I want to play as much as I can and be as good as I can. And luckily, I was good enough to make an immediate impact on the team. And then once I got on the team, it was just a bulldozer from there. But I'll tell you, my first Olympics was in Sydney in 2000, in Sydney, Australia. And we dramatically underperformed. We literally finished in last place.
Oh my God.
And I remember right after the Olympics was done, you have a choice as an athlete. You can either stay in the Olympics and then go see other sports or enjoy the village or go sightsee or whatever, or they'll send you home if you want to just go home. So I actually went home a few days early just because I was feeling so terrible about what had just happened. And I can remember being on the flight home and thinking, man, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. We just performed so poorly and I don't want to go through that again. And so maybe this isn't the right road for me. And being the competitive athlete that I was, the thought of that kind of quickly escaped my mind. And I started thinking more about, I'm ready to try this again, recognizing that I wanted to put more energy, more focus into the next 4 years so that when the next Olympics came, I would ensure that I would do my best, that we wouldn't go through something like that again. And so that's what I did over those next 4 years. I really dedicated and grew dramatically. Obviously, I got older, which helped as well, got a lot more experience, but I felt like there was a pretty big jump in the quality of my performance from that first Olympics and what that experience was like versus the next Olympics in 2004. So
that is the test. You guys kind of didn't have it together at Sydney and come dead last. And then to find the energy to say, hey, I'm going to go again. And of course, you got smarter because you got a little bit older. Your prefrontal cortex got a little bit more fortified in the process. Yep. Can you describe some of the other things that we might not have known about that made you better in 2004 than you were at Sydney?
I started competing at a higher level as well. So you get out of college, you go on to the national team, and you're obviously competing at a good level. But between those 2000 Olympics and 2004 Olympics, I was playing professionally in Italy, which at that time, probably the best professional volleyball league. And so I went over there and played for those 4 years and learned a different type of volleyball. They're much more technical. They break down all the skills versus just kind of depending on being strong and jumping high. And so I think kind of meshing a little bit of the American mentality with some European, Italian volleyball mentality really helped me kind of excel my development as a player. And again, getting older and being more strong and those types of things obviously helped as well. But there was a big jump in quality of play between those two Olympics and then continued even after the 2004 Olympics into 2008 when we won gold. I see those 8 years as a huge growing point in my development as a player, and playing overseas, playing in Europe had a major part of my development for sure.
I love that idea that you learn something different by playing pro in Italy, where they have some different probably philosophies and practices.
Yeah.
Can you share one or two of those that was just different from what you'd get in the States?
I'll just give you one for instance. So we would work a lot more technically on sound blocking principles. Blocking is a major aspect of indoor volleyball. The reason why it's so important, just like serving, is that typically when you score on a block or a serve, you're scoring what are called real points. In volleyball, every time you win a rally, you get a point. But if you can get a point while your team is serving, that's called a real point, and those are premium. Typically, the team that scores the most real points typically wins the match. And so being able to break down a skill like blocking, and for myself, I was what was called a middle blocker. And so one of my major contributions to the team is to be kind of the block head, right? To set the block, to ensure guys are in the right positions so that we can be successful in scoring points on the block. But I really needed this time in Italy to kind of break down the proper blocking mechanics, footwork, what I'm looking at, how I'm positioning my arms and my hands. And we would do practices, just our coaches would be on boxes and they would slap balls and they would just hit into us. And we would focus on trying to create kind of this highly efficient blocking structure. And then being able to bring that technical prowess back to the US and then meld that with US practices were a little bit different. We were about coming together as a team and developing a system that we can execute upon. But when you can put together the technical aspects with the system aspect, that's really where I felt like the magic happened with my own game in regards to being successful and performing at the level I needed to.
I like that you divide between technical and system. Can you elaborate on that? What is the difference between those two things?
The system is more of, in volleyball, your listeners are watching the Olympics right now and watching indoor volleyball. It's almost like a symphony. It's a little bit of a dance. So if the ball goes here, you see the players go there and they react to the ball when it goes here. And how you interact with each one of those circumstances is your system. How quick your offense is, where you set up on defense, your serving strategies, that's all part of the system. Now, within the system are all these individual tactics that guys are working on and trying to execute. And the more effective you are at the technical aspects, the more efficient your system ends up being. And so it's this interesting harmony that happens between these two aspects that I think make the best teams successful. And maybe the teams that aren't as successful, they aren't putting these two things together, or they're not jiving in the right way.
That's incredible. That's really cool. And I think that's applicable to pretty much any pursuit, which causes me to have to ask you, how has volleyball and I'm not saying this is a static thing, but as kind of more of a fluid thing, it's mastery, because you've mastered aspects at a level that very few people in history have. Right. And yet I'm guessing that you're still thinking about volleyball and still finding ways to improve certain things as you play beach volleyball or other things. But how has your pursuits in athletics somehow informed other pursuits outside athletics, perhaps professionally or academically?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I do feel like there are certain aspects of when I was competing. Obviously, I'm long retired now. But there are aspects of competition that play into what I do now. And so I'm developing and kind of growing my own consulting firm called Gold Medal Mindset, which is really exciting. And I'm a little OCD around specific things that I think are kind of directly related to my old playing days. For instance, I'm one of those people that gets anxiety when like my email inbox gets over 10. And I see other people who don't have those anxieties, right? They are okay with their phone, their inbox saying 17,000 emails. I just couldn't do that. And so I'm constantly trying to mitigate the risk of having this large inbox. And I was the exact same way with volleyball. If there were ever things that I knew I needed to get done, my go-to would be getting those done early. And in my mind, my thought process was, if I don't do those now with email, something's going to get lost. And me losing something because I didn't jump to it right away is something that my brain just won't let it happen. And so that's why when my inbox gets over 10, I'm like, oh no, I get a little anxious. When I was playing volleyball, it was like, well, I knew I need to put in this work. And if I don't do it, then it's going to start building up. And maybe I forget something. And if I forget something, maybe that means that my ability to perform, or I'm looked at as in a particular way by the coaching staff or from my teammates. There's that little bit of insecurity, which provides you a little bit of energy. And I still think that I use that to this day.
Oh, that's great. I think a lot about the 1980 U.S. hockey team, which I didn't get to see. I was too young at the time. But I watched the movie starring Kurt Russell describing what they did. And it was that they were a great team together. And we know that Ryan Millar may be good, but he needs his team.
Right.
And I'm wondering, what are some really cool takeaways that you got about forming a great team, really getting cohesive in sync, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, that's a big one for volleyball, because volleyball is really the prototypical team sport. The reason why I say that is because with indoor volleyball, as soon as I touch the ball, I'm no longer in control of the next touch. Right. And so there really is no way one person can dominate the sport of volleyball, because as soon as I touch the ball, the responsibility is now onto my teammates. Now,
I never thought of that, dude.
That ball might come back to me and I need to then perform, but you're constantly depending upon the next person, to what you often hear coaches and players say, bettering the ball. And that kind of defines a really good teammate, because I might give you a serve receive pass that might not be that great. Now it's kind of on the setter's shoulders to then go, okay, how can I better this ball? It wasn't a great pass, but one thing that I can control right now is I can deliver a really good set. And so volleyball ends up being a really, really critical team sport where you're constantly depending upon your teammates to ensure that you're performing at the level that you can. Obviously, my impact on that is great, right? The more effective I am at what I do in my job, the more likely it is that the team is successful. And I'm thinking about that same trust amongst all of my teammates, because the better they are, the more likely it is that we're successful as well. And so you think about how that kind of can translate into business as well, right? If you're on a project with a team, the more effective each member of the team is, the more likely it is that the project ends up being successful. And I'm no different in that as well.
So what were some of the drills, either on court or off court? I know you worked under the great tutelage of basically the Steve Kerr or Coach K or Michael Jordan of volleyball.
Right.
And I'm wondering, like, what were some of the skills and drills that maybe were used on court and off court to really increase team cohesion?
We would do a lot of situational application. The best way to be prepared in a pressure situation is to have already been trained or prepared on that similar situation before. So when the pressure situation happens, it's kind of like, oh no, I'm not hesitant around what the outcome is going to be here. It's because, no, we actually just practiced this before. And so we would do a lot of situational application around, let's say the ball lands in this particular area. How is the system going to pick each player up? Or what's your role in this particular instance that allows us to be successful? All right, let's do that a few times and get really good at it. And now let's pick a different scenario. Let's say this happens. And how is the system going to help us kind of perform here? And what's your role in that as well? So that when things actually do happen in an unorthodox way, it doesn't feel unorthodox to overcome and solve the problem because you're already been prepared to do it. I'll give you a really quick example. I use this often in my consulting business because it actually paints a really interesting picture. So in 2008 in Beijing, China, we're in the gold medal match and we're actually at gold medal point. And we're playing against the Brazilians, who's the defending Olympic champions in the finals. And they serve us the ball, and something unique kind of happens in the play because I mentioned to you that my position, my role on the court was called a middle blocker. In that particular play, our setter ends up having to play the first ball. So typically setters are touching the second ball, right? They're delivering the set to the attacker. But in this particular rally, by the way, gold medal point again, so there's no higher level of pressure. Our setter ends up having to play the first ball. So that means that a non-setter has to step in and fill the role as a setter. And that just so happened to be myself. So I was a middle blocker, but there were certain instances where if the setter played the first ball, I would actually have to step into the setter role. So I step in as a setter role. I deliver a set back to one of my teammates and he hits it over the Brazilian block and we go on and win the Olympic gold medal. And so that's a really good example of this kind of situational application around these circumstances that potentially arise because nothing ever goes super smoothly, right? That happens for us at work too. Nobody walks into their office or goes to their desk and has this week of utopia and euphoria where nothing is going right, nothing's going wrong, right? There's always going to be little hiccups and bumps and challenges and problems. And how we kind of prepare for those oftentimes determines how we overcome those. I think that's just a really interesting example of exactly that point, that sometimes we just have to step into different roles and different ways of doing things to produce the type of outcome that we're looking for.
The image I get is suddenly an offensive lineman has to play quarterback because
exactly.
Not exactly how you see it.
You don't see that very often. This particular instance, you probably see a little bit more often than that. But we've all seen those times when the offensive lineman has to pick up the fumble and then run into the end zone. That's not normally what they do, but they're doing it in that moment because they know that's what they have to do to ensure the team wins. And so I think it's an interesting example, but it actually paints a pretty similar picture.
And what's interesting is you and Ori Sasson, he's a 2-time bronze medalist in judo. He said simulations makes all the difference. And you're saying simulations makes all the difference. Right. So that's very interesting to hear. I'm wondering, what is it like in the locker room before the Super Bowl or the Super Bowl of the Olympics where you're sitting with your team and saying, it's all on the line. We're playing Brazil for the gold. What is the vibe like? maybe how is it a little different in terms of your practices of meditation or collaboration or whatever it might be? Can you tell me what's like behind closed doors?
It's tense, as you can probably imagine. I think as athletes at that level, you're very structured. So nothing changes around your pregame kind of mentality or your pregame warm up or anything. In fact, you don't want it to change. You want it to be very vanilla in regards to how you go about and approach it. I remember mentally telling myself, hey, don't get wrapped up. You're just playing volleyball. You've done this for a long time. It's another match. You're playing against this team that you know well. You've got a good scouting report. You've got a good strategy. Just trying to mentally get myself unwound a little bit so that I can go out there and just put the focus directly on the job at hand without trying to figure out, hey, if we win this, we're Olympic champions. If we lose it, we just lost. Who knows if we'll ever be back here again? Those types of things never even crossed my mind. It was just about the job at hand and figuring out how to be successful and doing everything that I could to ensure that we were successful.
So it's kind of tense, but you think of it as another game. You have to, I'm guessing. I think of Gene Hackman in Hoosiers when he measures the basketball court to let his team know the dimensions are the same as they are at home, even if there are thousands of people watching. And I'm just thinking about that last point, we're about to win. We haven't won yet, but we're about to. Can you walk me through? We are about all the way to winning. We cannot screw this up.
Yeah. So for us in that instance, we needed to side out one time. So Brazil was serving us the ball. We needed to just put the ball on the ground, and then we were going to be Olympic champions. The focus is on obviously the first touch, right? Get a good pass, put the ball in a good hittable area. And then as the attacker, let's make sure we get a good hit on the ball. That's kind of all you're thinking about in that time. Now, like I mentioned, that particular point ended up being a longer rally. It wasn't like they served it to us, we passed set and hit it, and that was it. No, we actually passed set and hit it. They actually made a really good defensive play, and some things happened, like our setter having to play the first ball. But again, to our point here in the whole conversation, really just kind of boils down to that initial preparation. And we were ready for all of those situations. It wasn't like those were surprising to us in those moments, because we'd played through those hundreds, if not thousands of times before. And once that final ball goes down, there's a lot of emotions that kind of, as you can probably imagine, go through your mind. And that was my third Olympic Games, medalists in the other two. In Athens, we actually lost the bronze medal match. So we finished fourth, which is a tough position to finish in the Olympics. I always feel bad for the people that get the fourth place position because I know how that feels. But there's a lot of excitement, obviously. There's a lot of gratitude for the moment. And to be honest with you, there's quite a bit of relief that you're able to kind of get over the hump and do something special. And then obviously gold medal kind of changes your life forever, really, especially in the US. Whether fair or not, we just value excellence at a different level than I think other places do. And the difference in the US around somebody winning gold versus silver and bronze, I think is maybe unnecessarily different, because I tell people often that it's just really hard to win Olympic medals. There's only one Michael Phelps, right? There's only one Katie Ledecky or Simone Biles. That's why there's only one of those people that have 10, 12. Michael Phelps has 28 medals, because it's not easy to do that.
I remember Michelle Kwan losing in 1998, the gold. She was predicted to win the gold. She ended up being the first skater, and therefore things went against her, I believe. And she's on Jay Leno, and he said, how did it feel to lose the gold? And she said, I didn't lose the gold. I won the silver. And that's something that I believe is in the soup here. It's something in the water that we have to be number one. And the idea of being number two is actually great. And we don't understand that. And I've been told that the happiest people on the stands are those who won gold and those who won bronze. The saddest is the silver winner because they were so close. And I'm wondering, to that point, the psychology, your life gets changed. And yet I'm told that the half-life of the good feeling is shorter than many people might imagine. And I'm wondering, how long did that keep you, wow? And then at what point it was, hey, I'm still me. And the buzz kind of petered out a little? Or has it ever?
The lasting effect, I don't think ever goes away. There's still times when I see my medal and I'm just, wow, this is really cool. Especially now in this time too, with the Olympics going on, it just amplifies it a little bit because I'm watching the Olympics and it's just bringing back a lot of memories and things like that. I think your discussion around the people that are happiest to win gold and bronze, at least for volleyball, I know it's not like this for every sport, but in volleyball, you lose to get the silver medal. You have to win the bronze medal. So you don't lose to get the bronze. You actually win to get the bronze, but you lose to get the silver. And so I think psychologically, there's an aspect there of, well, we won to get the bronze when we lost to get the silver. And so I think that plays into it a little bit as well. But in regards to the actual high of winning a gold medal, it's up there for at least a year or so. But then like everything else, it becomes a little bit of just kind of your day to day. But it does open a lot of really cool doors and some opportunities and things like that, which you wouldn't have otherwise. And I will forever be grateful for that. So.
Oh, that's so cool. Last question. Is there something I should have asked but haven't?
Yeah, I don't think so. I hope everybody's kind of watching these Olympics and just getting engulfed into the stories of these athletes, because it's pretty rare that these athletes have gotten to this level without dealing with some type of dramatic adversity, whether it be through injury or family problems or things that are going on in their personal life. I mean, they're still people, right? They're still dealing with the same problems that a lot of people deal with. And then they're in these Olympic Games and they're competing in front of these billions of people watching around the world. And it's a pretty unique opportunity to be a part of something that a lot of people just aren't a part of. And it was never lost on me around that, being this kid who grew up in the deserts of Southern California and never really ever considered being at that stage ever. But then all of a sudden you're there and you're competing and you're trying to do your best, but you're still that kid growing up in the deserts of Southern California. And so it's such a unique opportunity and an experience to be a part of. And to be able to do that 3 times to me was obviously something that was really special.
That's all
and
right.
To go out winning a gold medal obviously is really, really special.
So my man, my final question, I love that, by the way, what you just dropped. So great. They're all just human. And even though we see them as superhuman or something else, maybe we objectify them as just athletes, they're actually people who might have something kind of sucky going on at home. They might have a grandma who's sick and dying, for all you know.
Right.
Final question is this, and I ask all my listeners, if you had the magical abilities to confer upon all humanity one insight or skill that would dramatically improve the lives of the individual, and perhaps, since we're all connected, other people as well, maybe even society, what would that insight or skill be? And how do you imagine it would impact people?
Something that I really think is a good skill for people to have that probably is underappreciated in a lot of different ways is just the ability to be really curious. I think curiosity lends itself to a lot of other really important skills. It turns us into perpetual learners, right? We're always trying to be better because we're always asking the question, well, what else can I do in this situation? What other perspectives can I gather here? Who can I talk to about this problem that I'm having? What can I learn more about? Those are the types of qualities that I like in people that I like to be around. People that aren't know-it-alls, but that are constantly looking for better based on curiosity, more intelligence, being more informed about things. And I would say curiosity is a massive skill that I think if everyone could work on a little bit more, just the general nature of being curious, that's always been a really big thing for me that I've wanted to kind of lean into. And so I would say that.
That's beautiful. Ryan, you've really, really given my own curiosity just a great ride. And I want to thank you for all you've done, all the sacrifices you've made to become you. And I'm guessing that what you're doing with your consultancy is going to be helping people in their professional and personal lives. You're a really cool dude. So glad to have met you.
Appreciate it, Adam. It was a great interview. Good luck with your new book. Hope everyone goes out and reads it. And
Thanks,
if anyone wants to get a hold of me, reach out on LinkedIn or go to my website, which is goldmmindset.com. And you can learn more about the work that we do and you can get a hold of me. So appreciate you having me, though.
Oh, dude, my pleasure. And your website will be in my show notes as well.
Very cool.
Thanks again, Ryan.
Go USA, by the way.
Go USA! This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.